true paranormal story number 1. My paranormal experiences. It is very likely that something is haunting our house. Through the years, I've experienced quite a few supernatural things in the house, like hearing footsteps when no one is around. The footsteps come from areas that are no longer walkable, like walking through closet walls and windows. Things and objects are thrown from shelves, but they don't just fall. They'll be lifted several inches into the air, hang there for a moment, and then get thrown to the ground with great force. And we always try to find a logical explanation. But after a while, we try to ignore these paranormal experiences or find a rational explanation. One experience involves my younger brother and sister. When my brother was a toddler, he woke up one morning and told the whole family that during the night he got out of bed and went downstairs. When he got there, an old lady yelled at him to get back to bed. My younger sister had the same experience a few years later. They were both about 2 or 3 years old when it happened. So my sister hadn't even been born when it happened to my older brother. But the time it happened to her, my brother had completely forgotten that it happened to him. So it is very unlikely that he told her about it. Over the years, my parents and I have tried to explain it away, telling ourselves that they were only dreaming, but the fact that they both described the lady in nearly identical terms does prove that they just might be telling the truth. They claim they saw this old lady in the newest part of the house too. You see, we added a new section to the house that we built back in 2007. I've never felt comfortable in that part of the house, despite it being the most newest. All that was on the land before we built the addition was a single tree and some grass, but I feel very uncomfortable there. For a couple of years, the activity actually stopped, but it started up again recently. Recently, I've had books thrown around in my bedroom, and my mother woke up a few days ago when she thought that she heard my sister coming down the hallway. You see, my sister always asks my mom to do her hair in the morning, despite being old enough to do it herself. That particular morning, my mom didn't want to do my sister's hair, so she pretended to still be asleep. After a little while, she heard a voice next to her calling, "Mom, Mom, Mommy," whispering, thinking it was my sister. About 30 seconds passed, and my sister hadn't tried to shake my mom awake or sit on the bed as she normally does in the morning. My mom decided to open her eyes, only to find that she was completely alone in the room, and my sister was still in her own bed asleep. My parents' bedroom was located directly above the room where my brother and sister saw that old lady. So now we've had an old entity and a child entity that may be connected to the land or the original house. Having lived in this house as long as we have, we're not entirely bothered by most of the things that have happened, and nothing ever really harmed us. As for the voice calling out to my mom and addressing her as Mommy, well, that did spook us a lot, because it's the most concrete thing that's happened to us, and it's the hardest to explain away. Paranormal true story number 2. The Ghost Bride. This happened in late March in India. I was 14 years old. This happened in my village. There was no cinema, so I had to travel about 12 kilometers to get to the nearest theater. We usually went to the movies in groups, but one day none of my friends wanted to go, so I headed out alone for the evening show. Afterwards, I was dropped off at a bus stop that's located at the edge of my village. It was around 11 p.m., and my village being very small, I was all alone with no one around. I started walking towards home along the main road. After walking for about 20 minutes, I saw a woman. She was dressed in white and red. I felt really scared and I knew she couldn't be human. She was covering her face with the garment, just like newlyweds do in India. So, I assumed she was a new bride. I thought to myself, what's a newlywed bride doing out here, all alone, late at night? She was just standing there with only trees surrounding her. I called down to where she was and asked if she needed help. But instead of answering, she started walking into the trees. And I found myself following her all the way. But no matter how fast I walked, I was never able to catch up to her. She was always ahead of me. After a while, I regained consciousness. I looked around and discovered that I had wandered into the middle of a jungle. Suddenly, all the scary stories that my elders ever told me came back to my memory, and I stood there frozen in fear. I remember that in our culture, an evil spirit will appear dressed as a newlywed bride with no legs. Slowly, I looked down at the woman's legs and realized she didn't have any at all. I wanted to run, but the thought of her being behind me and possibly chasing me down made me feel sick and nauseous. I had chills and goosebumps all over my body. Just as all of this was coming through my mind, she stopped and turned to look at me. At that very moment, I told myself, you better run or you're gonna die right here. So I ran, and when I got close to my home, I started screaming for my mother. I then felt something grab my shoulder. It felt like a claw-like heavy hand. I screamed one last scream that I was barely able to do. My mother and brothers came outside and asked me what was wrong. I explained everything to them. They looked at my back because I said it was hurting, and there they saw claw-like scratch marks. My mother performed some rituals before letting me into the house. She wanted to ward off evil spirits so that it would never enter our home. I suffered from a very high fever for 3 days straight after seeing that evil bride. Once I was healthy again, I asked my mom if there were any new brides in our village or any surrounding village, and she said no, there was not. I still went to the movies after that, but only during the day, and never, ever alone at night again. Paranormal True Story number 3, Bloody Mary. When I was 12 years old, I became very interested in the paranormal. So my friend told me about standing in front of a mirror and reciting the words Bloody Mary several times in a row. Supposedly, this Bloody Mary would show up in person if you do that. I wanted to try it, but I was too afraid to do it alone. So one day, this friend and I stayed after school. After everyone had left, we walked down through the empty hall in the girls' bathroom in front of the mirror and began saying Bloody Mary 5 times in a row. We then heard a very strange female voice calling our names. We were terrified, and we ran out into the hallway, but nobody was around. 2 days later, I was sleeping in my upstairs bedroom, and I was awoken around 2 in the morning by the sound of crying. My parents were downstairs in their bedroom asleep, and there were no TVs or radios on at the time. I was terribly frightened because it sounded like a young woman crying right there next to me in my room. Then, I will never forget what happened next. I looked up and I saw a lady standing next to my bed weeping. She was very pale and had tears coming down her face. Her head was surrounded by massive unruly black hair. She wore a torn white dress. Continuing to cry, she just stared at me. I finally said, "Leave me alone." Then she disappeared, but I could not sleep again that night. The next night, I dreamt that the spirit of another woman was choking me, and the crying lady from the previous night was standing right next to her watching. I then woke up and I couldn't breathe. It felt like somebody was in the room with me. I ran out of my room in the pitch black hallway and screamed. My parents came rushing upstairs. I feel that by chanting Bloody Mary, I somehow drew these spirits to me, and it was a very, very scary experience. Although I didn't like what happened to me, I still do want to explore the paranormal. However, I'm afraid of what might happen, and my parents think I'll go to hell if I continue. Thank you for listening to Master of Horror. Please like and subscribe, and please help me get to 1,000 subscribers. If you've made it this far, consider yourself a true Master of Horror fan. Well, my friends, goodbye for now. Sleep tight, and don't forget to leave the nightlight on. Paranormal story number 1, the Ouija board. It was a cold December night in 2003. It was a Saturday, and we organized a small gathering for my friend Olivia's birthday with our closest friends. Everything was going well in a pretty good atmosphere, but I remember around 2 o'clock in the morning, Anna, another friend of mine, suggested that Olivia open the gifts she had received, since only about 8 of us were left. While everybody was laughing, she opened them one by one until it was time to open Anna's gift that she had brought. When Olivia opened Anna's gift, it looked like a board game, and we all thought it was supposedly just a random board game. But no, it was actually a Ouija board. A Ouija board, supposedly, is when one makes contact with beings from beyond this realm. So most of us made a gesture of displeasure. But Anna, the one who bought the board game, told us to calm down, that she knew a lot about these things, and that everything would be fine, that not all spirits are bad. After some time, about half of the people decided to leave, and half of us were arguing that playing the Ouija board was a very foolish thing to do. I agreed with them, but my curiosity was too great. I thought to myself, how could it be possible to communicate with spirits through a simple board? It was around 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning when my friends placed the Ouija board on a small table. Everyone sat around it, and it was illuminated by some candles. Anna was very well prepared. Once again, they urged me to play, but I refused. I felt that I was already risking too much by just being there. So there was about 5 of us in total: Olivia, Sophia, Matt, Anna, and me. Matt actually spoke out and said he was going to just stay over as an observer, and made everyone promise that if anything strange happened, we would immediately stop the game. That actually made me feel a little bit safer when he said that. About 15 minutes passed and absolutely nothing happened. The planchette didn't even move. For those who don't know, the planchette is a small triangular piece that is placed on the board, and it indicates letter by letter what the entity is trying to say. It meant there was no spirit in contact with us, so for a moment there I was a little bit relieved. But surprisingly, after a few more minutes, it began to move. Everyone started asking questions. Some questions were about things that only we knew about, but the spirit answered them with great certainty. You can say everything was going well, but then something terrible happened. We asked about the cause of death of an acquaintance of ours, about whether there were other spirits besides him, and then right after that question, we asked whether or not it was a good or evil spirit. The planchette moved toward yes when we asked if it was an evil spirit. Just then, suddenly, a door that was situated right behind us slammed shut. Later on, Sophia thought she heard someone call her name, but I certainly didn't hear anything. But what I am sure about is that the candle that I was holding started to shake. As a result, I dropped it on the floor. I tried to leave, and they tried to stop me. Anna told me that I couldn't just leave like that, as they had to say goodbye to the spirit first. But overcome with panic, I ignored their words. Everyone else stayed that I remember. I didn't hear from my friends for the next few days. Later on, I found out that things worsened. After I left, they told me that the spirit was asked its name, which it responded with a very strange and hard to pronounce name. I'm sorry that I can't tell you what it is, but not even they could remember it. They also told me that leaving there was the best thing I could have done by not being directly involved in the game. The risk I ran by leaving was lesser. As I mentioned, one of the most important rules of the Ouija is that you cannot leave the site until the entity allows you to go, and it says goodbye. As I understand it, that spirit was not allowing them to leave. Perhaps one of the strangest things is that no one noticed the things that others were perceiving. Matt explained he heard footsteps running towards him, but no one else noticed it. Also, in a really weird manner, Sophia started laughing hysterically while looking towards the patio, exactly through the door that had slammed a few moments before. She also collapsed to the floor. The rest affirmed they hadn't seen anything there. Olivia said she heard footsteps on the roof and some howling like that of an animal, and likewise no one else was aware of that. Anna clearly heard a scream in the distance and felt someone push her backwards, and from what I know, it was at that point when everyone ran out without properly ending the game. I think, as I did, that it was all just collective paranoia, and the perfect proof of that was that no one was aware of what the other was experiencing. But now, 25 years after that night, I truly believe everything that happened with my friends was merely not just coincidence. Since that time, only 2 of us are alive. Matt, about a month later, began to suffer terrible headaches and a sudden weight loss. Then ultimately, he passed away. Doctors were unable to accurately diagnose an illness, and this terrified us all without communicating with each other. We all came to blame the Ouija board. Olivia was unalived by her boyfriend a few months later. It's really strange because he seemed to be a good person, and I don't know what could have happened between them. Also, from that day on, Sophia was not well mentally. She occasionally experienced bouts of laughter and hysteria, kind of like that night when she was playing with the Ouija board. And as for Anna and I, we share the same fate, as we started to experience the same mental torture. In my case, I began by hearing a voice calling me, and later I started to see shadows with strange shapes. Although some have humanoid forms, I must say that I have managed to get used to this over time. But there is something that's strange. There is one that particularly allows itself to be seen for longer. It appears to be a very tall man, I would say about 7 foot tall, and very thin. And I cannot see his arms, nor does he have any features. I've tried to record it, but I've never been successful. And I don't know if someone is listening to this story that may know why every time I see that man, my ears get plugged and my muscles tense up and I am overwhelmed with fear every time I see him. I can go days or even months without seeing him, but then, out of nowhere, when I least expect it, he pops up again. He has never tried to attack me or anything. He just stands there, looking at me strangely. I thank God that I enjoy good health, and I think I'll be fine. True paranormal story number 2. The haunted apartment. Hi. I used to live in a townhouse in Rosenberg, Texas in the mid-1990s. We had an older man named Johnny, who was the maintenance man, and he had a friend named Ted that would help him do maintenance work for the townhouses. So when people would move out, Johnny and Ted would have to clean up the apartment, fix it up, and get it ready for new occupants. Johnny would tell me that people would leave the most outrageous things behind. He claims that most people never even cleaned up the place when they left, leaving most of their valuables behind. Well, one day, Johnny the maintenance man told me that something horrible happened to him the night before when he spent the night in one of the apartments that he was cleaning out. He claims that he was alone in the apartment around 1 o'clock in the morning, and instead of driving back home, he decided to spend the night since there was so much work to be done. Ted, his friend that usually helps him, didn't come that night, so Johnny was alone. The electricity was off, but Johnny had his flashlight, and he said that he had some candles with him, and he made a small sleeping area on the carpet floor and laid down to sleep to try to get some rest before he had to wake up in a few hours to start work again. He claims that in the middle of the night, he was awoken by someone calling his name in the room. No one was in the room at the time. He thought it was his imagination and went back to sleep. He then woke up and again, about an hour later, feeling sharp pain coming from his feet. When he moved the blanket from his feet, he saw that he had red marks on his feet as if someone was scratching his feet. He said it was really painful, and he got up and walked around the room. He then heard a noise coming from the closet. That's when he opened the closet door, and to his surprise, there was a Ouija board on the top shelf. Whoever lived there cleaned out the whole apartment, but left the Ouija board behind. He got chills all over his body when he saw it, and quickly threw the board in the trash outside the apartment. He went back to sleep, and then was awoken a third time, feeling pain coming from his feet, as if something was punching the bottom of his feet. He jumped up and quickly opened the closet door to see if the board was still there, and to his surprise, even after throwing the Ouija board away, the board was in the same original spot it was in, on the closet shelf. He got his keys as fast as he could, claiming that it felt as if he was being watched the whole time. His flashlight didn't work anymore for some reason, and he couldn't find his candles. He had to find his way in the dark out of the apartment. He claims while he was going down the stairs in the dark, he heard something right behind him, following him down the stairs. While he was driving away, he said he saw a cloaked black figure looking out the bedroom window that he was sleeping in. He said he never went back to that apartment, and he's always stayed away from Ouija boards. True paranormal story number 3, the haunted Needville house. In 2003, me and my wife got married and lived with my parents in Needville, Texas. We lived in a haunted house on Line Street. Many paranormal things in that house happened. For example, one day when my dad was alone washing dishes, he claims that my wife was standing in the hallway staring at him for about 5 minutes, When he looked up and acknowledged her and asked her if everything was okay, she just turned around and walked away. Since that encounter, many other things happened after that. One night, when me and my wife were asleep in the room, it was extremely cold, so we covered up the air-conditioned vents. To our surprise, it got even colder, to where we could see our breath in the air. When we woke up the following morning, my wife had my jacket on her. I never put it on her, nor did she remember putting on a jacket. This was really confusing, but we completely tried to forget about it. But the really scariest incident is which occurred on a Saturday night around 3 o'clock in the morning when my older brother came to spend the night on the living room floor. He claims he woke up and not only was a ceiling fan about to fall off the ceiling from going extremely fast, but when he tried to get up, something was holding his arms and his legs down. He couldn't get up, nor could he even move. The most that he said he could do was look around with his eyes. He tried to say God's name, and even that couldn't come out of his mouth. He was basically paralyzed and petrified. After about 2 minutes, he was then released. He got up and ran to my mother's room and told her what happened. After my mom walked around the living room praying out loud, my older brother decided to drive home.